So the last presentation is Robert Costello and Diana Marques for the app Skin and Bones.
I can run over to my office and do that. We're going to switch things around a little bit. Hopefully not take the system down. While we're trying to get it set up here, I'm Robert Costello from Natural History.
It's the usual thing. It's just a connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you need
I
any?
do.
You're good?
I mean, it should.
Oh, it's been a little fussy.
It's just a connection, I guess.
I don't know why it's a little fussy. No, that's not even getting it
It
all.
should be fine. It usually works. Okay, let me try that again.
Can I quit out of here and open it up again?
Okay.
So maybe that'll spur it to know that something's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not picking up the sound. I mean, I can bring my computer if that would make a difference, but then you can do. Should I bring my computer? Okay, you keep bugging with that, and then I'll bring my computer.
Okay. Okay, we'll switch out devices. It just means that we'll drop off one feature where we were going to trigger augmented reality for you from the iPad, and we can't do that from the laptop.
Let's try this one. Let's just try a different
Try a different
dongle.
dongle in case it's the, yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
So,
Could just
that would be a real shame not to get to see
No,
that.
it's gonna work.
I guess the other pads that were used throughout the presentations were probably newer too. I don't know if that would be an issue with this.
Oh, is
It-
this an iPad 1?
This is 2.
Oh, it's a 2. It should work then.
It always works well when I
Yeah.
use it repeatedly to present.
Yeah.
Let's see,
I can't explain that.
I don't know. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I guess as it's an alpha, I don't have it on my iPad.
Yeah.
So you have the same presentation on here?
I have it on my computer. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just it won't do
I
the
don't,
same.
my troubleshooting, I don't know what else to do.
That's okay.
Okay, so.
Oh, but that's good.
Carefully put this down. Okay. Okay, wait a second. Okay, there we go. Okay, a shot. Do you want to move this out of the way?
App that Mark put on my computer
Oh.
isn't on hers. So I think.
We won't be able to, you'll have to just shoot the screen.
Screen.
Okay. So we can feed it out.
Okay. Let's cross your fingers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this, I guess we can get rid of.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay. I should mention that this is a mobile app that's in development. It's not out yet. We hope to have a beta version out in iTunes U before the end of the year. And this is a mobile app for an in-exhibit experience. And this is not exactly the Peacock Room. It's the Bone Hall at Natural History. And the Bone Hall has about 300 skeletons in it. And it was born in 1881 over at Arts and Industry, which was the U.S. National Museum. It is, as far as I can tell, the oldest exhibit within the Smithsonian Institution. And I could even point out some of the specimens that you can see that are in the current Bone Hall, such as you can see a sword from a swordfish, the bill. There's a stellar sea cow, which is in the hall. And so that exhibit was reassembled in 1911 when the Natural History Building was completed, construction was completed. So it was moved over in 1911 from its 1881 opening. It opened again a second building. And the freestanding cases were still there and brought over, and you see this case with a human, a chimpanzee, and a gorilla, the first three, for example. And then you see it when it reopened in Natural History in 1964 in its present location. And here's the human being and the gorilla and the chimpanzee and the orangutans. And it's almost unchanged from 1881. So why would I want to touch it? It's like, why? Why would anyone want it? What could possibly be wrong with a hall of historic proportions? There are a couple of issues. One is, for this case, as an example, I call philosophizing on goat suckers. I'm sure you all know what a goat sucker is. It's over here. And the text, and I'm just pulling out a sample line of text which reads, they are either Schizognathus or Desmonathus, and most have basi-pterygoid processes. Now, if that doesn't capture the essence of a goat sucker, I mean, I can't write better than that. So let's just say maybe all of our visitors don't have the same appreciation that I do for the philosophy behind that. The other challenge for us is that the hall is a passageway rather than a destination. It gets people from one place to another, and we've done tracking studies, Diana has, and we see that on average people pause 4 times, and on average for less than 10 seconds. And it seems like a lot of their pauses are just long enough to figure out that they don't want to be there, and then they move on. That's like a 3-4 second pause, and then they've assessed the content and they get out of there. And so they're not really getting much out of the exhibit experience. The objectives for creating, for overlaying technology onto the hall, or what I would call reskinning the hall with technology, is to create a more enjoyable and memorable exhibit experience, and to create an active, engaging experience for our visitors. Make the hall a destination if that's at all possible using technology. Turn a 19th century, truly a Victorian age exhibit into a 21st century experience, and do it in a way where nobody gets hurt, right? So I don't touch the hall. No one comes after me with an ice pick for changing a historic exhibit. And getting at some of the principles here, I was looking at these and thought, well, we're scoring a C-. We got like 7 out of 10, maybe 8. But sharing is one of those that I think we can say that we've taken ideas that were developed here at the Smithsonian, which is a conceptual framework called IPOP, and actually there was an exhibit here that used that framework, and we've we've fit our content into the conceptual framework. And IPOP stands for ideas, people, objects, and physical or kinetic interactions with exhibits. And these are, according to Andy Pekarik, the preferences that different individuals have for engaging with exhibits. And so we've created content around that conceptual framework. And it looks something like this. We created a Meet the Scientist for the people preference people, Skeleton Works for object preference people, Big Ideas for people who are interested in concepts more than anything else, and for physical people or kinetic people who have to be active, we've created activities that they can engage with. And then we added another category called animal life for animal people. And this is a screen capture of how that looks on the design of the app. And with that, I'll turn it over to Diana, as she is responsible for designing the user interface. We also work with Second Sight and knew that their design skills were less than adequate for our purposes. And Diana is a world-class illustrator and designer, so I was fortunate to have her as a colleague.
Thank you. So let me take you briefly over the user experience. And we thought that after the visitor is in the hall and has downloaded the app to their phone using the free Wi-Fi on premises, we'd start them off with a splash page, which is a short animation that is trying to set the expectations to what augmented reality is. The truth is, while we were doing observation and tracking, we also were talking to people, asking, do you know what AR is? And most people did not. So not only we want to give this idea, right in the beginning, but we also want to brand AR through the app with this logo that we're using, and that Mateo, which is the software that we're using for AR, is trying to promote as the universal logo for AR. So every time the visitor will see this logo throughout the app, they will know they can access this kind of technology, this kind of content. Note as well that we have two options here: enter the Bone Hall or I'm not in the Bone Hall. So for now, we are prioritizing the in the museum experience, but our idea is later to have also an off-site experience where we're making available 3D files that people can print in their local libraries, at schools, and then trigger the AR from those 3D models. So once you're inside the app, and we're back to the whole navigation issues. We have this long hall, 5 rooms, over 300 skeletons, and we need to convey the visitors where is this added content that you can benefit from. So we started by creating a 2D map that labels where these skeletons are, but we soon found out that 2D maps don't work for every visitor, so we decided to introduce a 3D way of navigation. So this 2D map has several entry points to a QTVR panoramas that have been developed for the museum before and are available on the museum website, and that are getting integrated into the app. So people can use both ways to find the 13 skeletons that we are featuring in the hall. So as Robert was showing, this would be the main page for each of those 13 skeletons, where you find these 5. For most of them, we have the 5 categories, but for some of them we won't. So again, note where the AR is labeled. And when there isn't an AR content, and I should say that we will have about 8 AR experiences out of the 13 skeletons. When it is not an AR content, it's going to be video content. So if the visitor would choose animal life for the bison, they would land on a page like this where you can play the video. I should say these videos are short, so about 1.5 minutes, maybe slightly less, slightly longer. They will be closed captioned, and they're also shareable. So we are, for now in this beta version, there will be Twitter and Facebook for now, and we're hoping to increase the social platforms that they can be shared with. So, Animal Life to appeal to animal people will be a video talking about the environment, what the bison eats, what is the predators, that sort of ecology kind of content. And then Meet the Scientists to try to establish that human connection. We are both interviewing curators at Natural History, and we're also featuring some deceased Smithsonian investigators, scientists. Like for the bison, we're making a video about William Temple Hornaday, who was chief taxidermist of the Smithsonian in the 19th century, and he was also the first director of the National Zoo. So, like the big idea for the woodpecker will be about comparing the tongues and how they're different and how that partitions the resources for these animals. An example of an activity for the rattlesnake would be, listen to the rattle and then shake your device to rattle back. And we'll have a similar experience for the woodpecker, where you'll be tapping the screen to peck like a woodpecker, and so on. This is the point where I would love to show you what the AR is looking like. Unfortunately, because we're having this mishap with the iPad, I don't think I will be. But I'll briefly describe that, once you do choose an AR choice, then the camera on your mobile device is automatically on. And once you point it to the skeleton, then you'll see either a 3D model or a 3D animation going on. So the swordfish, which is 1.5 meters long, beautiful skeleton that's over there, once you point your device, then you see the skinned animal on top, a 3D model that shows you that you can get really close to and look it in the eyes. The same for the mandrill. For the woodpecker, you'll point the device and immediately you see the woodpecker skinning the skeleton, and it starts, tapping, listening, moving around, and then we'll pull the skull forward to show exactly how the tongue mechanism is working. So, and like the aninga, an aquatic bird, will be spearing fish right in front of you. So as much as possible, we're trying to make it dynamic, engaging, and really bring life to these skeletons. I will finish by saying that we're trying to use this as a huge experiment. So rather than doing a small visitor study just to assess, how this tool is working, is it matching our expectations? We're trying to use this as a big research project, answering some of the questions like, is the visitor satisfaction higher with mobile experience? Are the visitors taking away stronger experiences from this exhibit because now they're using mobile and they have this added digital layer? How does augmented reality contribute to the visitor experience? And this is especially important to us since we're experimenting with this, brand new thing, and how can this inform the museum community in general? And are visitors consistent in selecting their IPOP preference? So yet another chance of testing IPOP and how, is it true that visitors do have these preferences? And are they consistent with them even in the presence of AR? So the way we're doing this is that we're actually creating two apps. We're creating an app with augmented reality, and we're creating a second app just for research purposes that all the AR content is being replaced by videos. So this will give us a chance to create 3 samples of visitors, and we'll test them by interviewing, surveying, doing observation and tracking with them, and really go in and compare what their experience is like, without any mobile use with AR, and mobile use without AR. So with this, I'll conclude, and I'll leave you with a huge list of acknowledgements, which is even far from being complete. And I don't know if Robert wanted to add something.
I guess if You know, quite often when we develop exhibits or even mobile technology, in an education office where I work, we generally have learning goals or understanding goals for our audience or our visitors. And then what we do in evaluation is we then evaluate our visitors to see whether or not they have learned the things we would like them to learn. We're not doing anything like that with this project. I don't have any understanding or learning goals. This is a research project on the visitor experience and what they engage with. And I think when we measure learning goals, we fail to measure what our visitors actually learned, because we restrict it to such a subset of the things we want them to learn that we never ask them what they actually learned outside of our learning goals. And by doing extensive research on this project, we hope to identify those attributes that appeal to our visitors and engage them most, which then can give us an opportunity to build on that for other learning opportunities once we figure out what it is that really hooks them. And I think it's an interesting opportunity to test IPOP and see whether or not a visitor who's taken the IPOP survey and has been identified to be a people person actually chooses Meet the Scientists more than any other content group, or does it first. I think that we might see some surprises. And if they flip. And so one of the reasons for using IPOP is you hook, let's say, a people person into the content with a personal story, a people story, and they get so enthralled with that content that they want more. And so if it's for the woodpecker, their only other choices are non-people choices, and so they try the object choice, the skeleton works, and they have an aha moment, and that's flipping them from their preference to something else. And so that's, there's no known mechanism for that, or one that we know of, and we're going to see whether or not that happens as well. Anything else? Thank you. Thanks for waiting.